What if I told you that Kevin Stefanski keeping Shedeur Sanders as the fourth-string quarterback isn't incompetence, it's genius? What if Dillon Gabriel's pathetic 50% completion rate and those 11 missed passes out of 14 attempts aren't accidents but carefully orchestrated failures? The Cleveland Browns aren't trying to win games this season. They're executing a $230 million business strategy that requires Shedeur Sanders to fail, and I have the receipts to prove it. This goes deeper than racism, deeper than bias. This is about cold, calculated profit margins that will shock you to your core. While Shannon Sharpe and Ocho Cinco are calling out Stefanski for bias, and fans are screaming about racism, everyone is missing the real story. The Browns aren't keeping Shedeur on the bench because they don't believe in him. They're keeping him there because they believe in him too much. This organization has spent 30 years perfecting the art of strategic failure, and Shedeur Sanders represents the biggest threat to their most profitable season yet. Today, I'm going to expose the financial conspiracy that explains why Dillon Gabriel gets first-team reps despite completing just 3 passes out of 14 attempts, why Kenny Pickett remains ahead of a quarterback who showed out every single snap, and why the Browns are willing to sacrifice their Super Bowl chances for a payday that dwarfs any championship ring. By the end of this video, you'll understand why Shedeur's success is Cleveland's worst nightmare. Here's what nobody wants to admit: the Cleveland Browns make more money losing than winning. While fans dream of playoffs and Super Bowls, the front office is calculating revenue streams that depend on controlled failure. And Shedeur Sanders? He's the one player who could accidentally ruin their entire plan. Think about it logically. You have a quarterback who dominated at Jackson State, elevated Colorado's program, and, according to Ocho, just did what we already saw him do when given NFL opportunities. Shannon Sharpe pointed out that Shedeur performed at an elite level even while playing with third and fourth team players. This isn't a player you're unsure about, this is a player you're terrified of. But here's where it gets sinister. The Browns have perfected a business model built on hope and disappointment. Season ticket holders renew based on potential, not performance. Merchandise sales spike with each new franchise savior. Television ratings remain high because fans believe this could be the year. A legitimately good quarterback ruins this cycle by actually delivering results. Look at the evidence. Dillon Gabriel completes 11 out of 22 passes, a 50% completion rate when all eyes were on him. In his worst outing, he managed just 3 completions out of 14 attempts, throwing 11 passes wide off the mark. These aren't the statistics of a player being developed, these are the statistics of a player being showcased as incompetent. Meanwhile, Shedeur doesn't even get first-team reps, yet still manages to make Stefanski admit the guys did a really nice job and were making plays. The coach's lukewarm praise isn't dismissiveness, it's damage control. He can't completely ignore Shedeur's performance, but he can't afford to build too much hype either. The Browns need Gabriel to fail publicly and spectacularly. They need Kenny Pickett to show just enough promise to maintain hope while ultimately disappointing. But Shedeur? Shedeur represents the one variable they can't control: genuine, undeniable talent that could accidentally lead them to success. Let me break down the real numbers that explain everything. The Cleveland Browns revenue model isn't built on winning, it's built on the perpetual promise of winning. And those numbers are staggering. A successful season means higher player salaries, increased operational costs, and most importantly, elevated fan expectations that become expensive to maintain. But a strategically mediocre season? That's a goldmine. Season ticket renewals remain steady because fans believe they're one player away. Merchandise sales continue because hope sells jerseys. Television contracts remain lucrative because Cleveland's suffering is entertainment for the rest of the NFL. Here's where Shedeur becomes a threat to this entire ecosystem. Shannon Sharpe didn't mince words. I'm telling you right now, Shedeur Sanders proves he's more than capable enough to lead this team to the playoffs, possibly the Super Bowl. That's not hyperbole, that's a financial nightmare for Browns ownership. A Super Bowl run means massive salary cap implications. Success breeds expectations for continued investment in talent. Winning creates pressure to maintain championship-level spending year after year. The Browns have calculated that controlled mediocrity generates more sustainable profit than unpredictable success. But there's an even darker element to this conspiracy. The Browns need a scapegoat narrative for their inevitable failure this season. They can't blame Gabriel, he was never supposed to succeed. They can't blame Pickett, he's the established veteran doing his best. But Shedeur? If they can create a narrative that even the most talented rookie wasn't ready, they've got their excuse locked and loaded. Notice how Stefanski's public comments focus on what Shedeur can't do rather than acknowledging what he's already accomplished. The coach said there's a ton to teach off of instead of celebrating explosive plays. This isn't evaluation, it's narrative construction. The Browns are building a story where they gave the rookie a chance, but he just wasn't ready for the complexity of NFL defenses. Meanwhile, they're ensuring he never gets the first-team reps or proper support that would allow him to prove otherwise. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy designed to protect their long-term financial strategy. When this season inevitably fails, they'll point to Shedeur's limited opportunities as evidence that even our most promising prospect needs more development. This justifies another year of mediocrity, another season of selling hope instead of delivering results, and another cycle of profitable disappointment. The Browns' internal evaluation of Shedeur Sanders isn't about his current abilities, it's about his catastrophic potential to disrupt their entire business model. And the evidence suggests they're more terrified of his success than his failure. Consider what we know about Shedeur's performance. Ocho Cinco observed that despite not getting first-team reps with the ones or the twos, Shedeur went out there and looked the way he did. He's described as an accurate thrower who, when he's got to make big throws in the red zone, he's pretty damn good at it. This isn't a developmental project, this is a ready-made franchise quarterback. But here's what makes Shedeur uniquely dangerous to Cleveland's strategy. His pedigree makes him impossible to quietly bury. Deshaun Sanders' son can't be hidden in the shadows like other late-round picks. Media attention follows him everywhere. Fan expectations are already elevated. If he succeeds, the Browns can't claim it was unexpected or unplanned. The organization has spent decades perfecting the art of managing expectations. They draft players with potential who can be developed slowly, giving them years to control the narrative. But Shedeur arrives with a spotlight already attached. His success would be immediate, undeniable, and impossible to spin as anything other than organizational competence, something that threatens their excuse-making infrastructure. Shannon Sharpe identified the real issue when he said, "Your job as a coach is to put players in position and find something that they can do." But what if the coach's actual job is to prevent players from doing too much too soon? What if Stefanski's role isn't to develop Shedeur but to contain him? The Browns need Shedeur to remain hungry but not fed. They need him engaged but not empowered. They need him visible enough to maintain fan interest but limited enough to avoid accidental success. It's a delicate balance that requires keeping him exactly where he is, fourth on the depth chart, getting just enough opportunities to show flashes but never enough to take control. Look at how they've structured his development. No first-team reps means no chemistry with starting receivers. Limited practice time means no opportunity to master the full playbook. Minimal game action means no chance to build momentum or confidence. Every limitation is carefully calculated to prevent the kind of breakthrough performance that could derail their entire strategy. The most telling evidence? Despite Shedeur's obvious talent and readiness, reports continue to circulate that Stefanski is still not convinced and believes Dillon will still be ahead of Sanders. This isn't evaluation, it's damage control. They're not trying to determine who gives them the best chance to win. They're trying to determine who gives them the best chance to lose in a manageable, profitable way. Dillon Gabriel isn't just a backup quarterback. He's the centerpiece of the most elaborate smokescreen in NFL history. His catastrophic performances aren't accidents, They're carefully orchestrated theater designed to make the Browns' quarterback situation appear legitimately competitive while ensuring Shedeur never gets a real opportunity. Let's examine Gabriel's numbers with fresh eyes. That 50% completion rate when all eyes were on him wasn't pressure, it was performance art. The day he completed just 3 passes out of 14 attempts, throwing 11 wide off the mark? That wasn't rust or nerves, that was a masterclass in controlled incompetence. But here's the genius of the Gabriel operation, he provides perfect cover for keeping Shedeur buried. The Browns can point to Gabriel's struggles and say, "See? Even our second-choice rookie isn't ready. How can we possibly trust our fourth-string quarterback?" It's misdirection at its finest. The organization needs Gabriel to fail publicly and repeatedly because his failures justify their entire depth chart structure. Every missed pass, every poor decision, every moment where the defense had Dillon figured out reinforces the narrative that rookie quarterbacks simply aren't ready for NFL complexity. This narrative protects them from questions about why Shedeur isn't getting opportunities. Notice the pattern in how Gabriel's failures are presented. When he struggles, it's attributed to the natural learning curve of young quarterbacks. When Shedeur succeeds, it's dismissed as a small sample size or credited to the supporting cast. The Browns have created a system where Gabriel's incompetence is expected and excused, while Shedeur's competence is minimized and questioned. Shannon Sharpe identified this double standard perfectly. How do the Browns know Dillon Gabriel will be able to do what they're claiming? The answer is simple. They don't need Gabriel to succeed. They need him to fail in a way that makes their quarterback evaluation appear thorough and reasonable. The most damning evidence of this conspiracy? Gabriel continues to receive first-team reps despite his obvious limitations. A legitimate organization would have moved on after his 21% completion rate performance. Instead, the Browns doubled down, giving him more opportunities to demonstrate his inadequacy. This isn't player development, it's narrative construction. Gabriel's role is to be the cautionary tale that justifies keeping Shedeur on the bench. Every time fans question why Sanders isn't starting, the Browns can point to Gabriel's struggles and say, "This is what happens when you rush young quarterbacks." It's a self-fulfilling prophecy that protects their long-term strategy while appearing to give rookies legitimate opportunities. The beauty of this operation is its deniability. If questioned, the Browns can claim they're simply being thorough in their evaluation process. They're giving all their young quarterbacks chances to compete. But the competition is rigged from the start, with Gabriel serving as the designated failure that makes Shedeur's exclusion appear reasonable rather than strategic. The ultimate goal of this conspiracy isn't just one season of controlled failure, it's a multi-year financial strategy worth over $230 million in guaranteed revenue streams. And Shedeur Sanders represents the single biggest threat to this carefully constructed house of cards. Here's how the math works. The Browns have calculated that 3 years of strategic mediocrity generates more profit than 1 year of unexpected success. Mediocre seasons mean lower salary cap commitments, reduced operational costs, and most importantly, sustained fan engagement without the pressure of championship expectations. But the real money comes from the draft capital they're accumulating. By ensuring this season fails while maintaining plausible deniability, they're positioning themselves for higher draft picks that can be traded for additional assets. Each loss this season translates to millions in future value, whether through draft position or trade opportunities. Shedeur's success would catastrophically disrupt this timeline. If he leads the Browns to even moderate success this season, they lose draft position, face increased salary cap pressure, and most dangerously, create expectations they're not prepared to meet. The organization has built its entire financial model around managing disappointment, not delivering results. The $230 million figure comes from combining several revenue streams: season ticket sales based on perpetual hope rather than actual performance, merchandise revenue from fans buying jerseys of the next franchise savior, television contract bonuses tied to market engagement rather than wins, and the massive value of high draft picks that can be accumulated through strategic losing. But there's an even more sinister element to this endgame. The Browns are using Shedeur's presence to sell hope while ensuring he never gets the opportunity to deliver on that hope. They're marketing his potential while systematically preventing him from realizing it. It's the perfect scam, selling the promise of success while guaranteeing failure. Ocho Cinco's observation that Shedeur just did what we already saw him do at Jackson State and what we saw him do at Colorado reveals the Browns' deepest fear. This isn't a player who might develop into something special. This is a player who's already special and could prove it immediately if given the chance. The organization's strategy requires Shedeur to remain a what-if rather than a what-is. They need him hungry enough to maintain fan interest but starved enough to prevent accidental success. It's a delicate balance that becomes impossible to maintain if he ever gets legitimate opportunities with first-team players. The endgame is a 3-year cycle where the Browns accumulate draft capital, maintain revenue streams, and eventually trade Shedeur to another organization before he can expose their strategy. They'll claim they gave him every opportunity while pointing to Gabriel's failures as evidence that their evaluation process was thorough and reasonable. By the time fans realize what happened, the Browns will have extracted maximum value from Shedeur's potential without ever allowing him to realize it. It's the perfect crime, stealing a player's prime years while appearing to develop him, all in service of a financial strategy that prioritizes profit over performance. The evidence is overwhelming. Dillon Gabriel's 21% completion rate isn't incompetence, it's cover. Kevin Stefanski's refusal to give Shedeur first-team reps isn't bias, it's business strategy. The Browns aren't trying to find their franchise quarterback, they're trying to prevent him from finding them. Shannon Sharpe was right when he said Shedeur could lead this team to the playoffs, possibly the Super Bowl. But that's exactly why he'll never get the chance. The Browns have built a $230 million empire on the promise of success, not its delivery. Shedeur Sanders represents the one threat they can't control, genuine talent that could accidentally make them good. This isn't about racism, though that plays a role. This isn't about incompetence, though that's the cover story. This is about a systematic financial conspiracy that requires Shedeur to fail so the organization can profit. They're not developing a quarterback, they're destroying one. The question isn't whether Shedeur deserves a chance, it's whether Browns fans deserve to know their team is actively sabotaging their championship hopes for profit margins. The conspiracy is real, the evidence is clear, and the cost is a generational talent being wasted in service of corporate greed. What do you think? Have I connected the dots, or am I seeing conspiracies where none exist? Drop a comment with your take on whether the Browns are really this calculated in their mediocrity, or if this is just another case of organizational incompetence. And if you believe this conspiracy goes even deeper, let me know what evidence I missed. Don't forget to subscribe because next week, I'm exposing how this same strategy is being used across the entire NFL to suppress talent and maximize profits.